Alright, so let's get into this first. Well, actually, now that I think about it, there are two other little things I'd like to quick talk about before I get into the first topic, but I promise this is going to be the first topic. I noticed that, so, here I can just, hit the button on the camera, whereas over when I was at home, I actually had to get up and walk around, which caused the camera to move around a little bit, which is a bit annoying. But I don't have to do that, which is great. I can just sit down and the camera is going to stay in the same spot. But anyway, let's get into our first actual topic here, which is the big news of the new Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighter. So, I don't know how you could have missed it, but on January 16th, 2020, the fifth and final member of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighter Pass was revealed, and that character is Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses for the Nintendo Switch. Which is a strategy RPG that was released in July of 2019. I don't remember what entry it is in the Fire Emblem series. It's funny, Sakurai actually went through and counted out the entries when he was giving his presentation, so I'm going to have that video linked in the description here, so you should just be able to check that out, and you can find out that number right there. But the point is, it's in like the teens, somewhere around there. Like, I think it's, my gut wants to say 17. I could be wrong. This is the fifth and final fighter of the first Fighters Pass, but of course during the Terry presentation, Sakurai announced that there will be a second set of DLC fighters, which was officially revealed as the Fighters Pass Volume 2. Wow, how creative from the Fighters Pass number 1. I think the presentation is overall fine, but let's just talk about the reveal. What do I think about the reveal? I went in expecting to be unimpressed, because after all, how could the team possibly top the characters I already revealed? You have to remember, we had Joker from Persona 5, which is a huge recent game, especially for Japanese players. Persona's always been significantly more popular there, but obviously with Persona 5 in particular, the Persona series has seen an increase in popularity here in the West. The second one was Hero from the Dragon Quest series, and there's no actual character in the Dragon Quest series who's called Hero. It's just the protagonist from 4 different games: 3, 4, Dragon Quest 8, and Dragon Quest 11. But the team used Dragon Quest 11S because that's the brand new Nintendo Switch version. Then the third one, which was, this is the highlight for me as somebody who's been a huge Nintendo person, especially, I remember I talked about in the first episode Donkey Kong Country being one of my first games ever. So I've always had a bit of a connection to Rare. The third one was Banjo and Kazooie. Huge news for a whole variety of reasons, but, I think I'll talk about that some other time. And then the fourth one was Terry Bogard from the Fatal Fury series and the King of Fighters as well. So yeah, when you've got this huge incline of like amazing characters, I'm sure some could argue that Terry is a bit of a drop down from Banjo, or Banjo's a drop down from Hero. Whatever. These are all big, important characters. I've just never seen representation in Smash Brothers. I really wasn't expecting to be super duper wowed by whoever the last one was going to be. The presentation itself I found to be pretty standard. Because I watched all the other ones. I watched the Hero one, I watched the Banjo one, I watched the Terry one, so it just seemed like this video was about the same as the others. There was really nothing in it that was super duper interesting in terms of just, here's how the presentation is, other than we're going to actually reveal the character today. Now, the thing about this one is there's quite a bit of disdain for Byleth being the last choice, and I kind of brought it up myself. I was a bit unimpressed, but I really wasn't expecting anything super huge, so I wasn't super disappointed. I'm just glad that there's another character in Smash Brothers. Like, I will never ever take for granted Sakurai's work on this game, because, oh my god, it seems like the man's about to kill himself every single time he works on something in terms of, especially for Smash Brothers, because there's so much stuff, and he is the definition of a perfectionist in terms of how his games need to come out. Like, he makes sure that every single little detail is there perfectly, and I commend that. Then the third one was Terry Bogard from the Fatal Fury series, and the King of Fighters. Which is a huge recent game, especially for Japanese players. Persona's always been significantly more popular there, but obviously with Persona 5 in particular, the Persona series has seen an increase in popularity here in the West. The second one was Hero from the Dragon Quest series, and 3, 4, Dragon Quest 8, and Dragon Quest 11. But But in terms of Byleth, people were just kind of left feeling bleh, flat. Like, really? This is how it's ending? That's kind of the idea. And, just to kind of give credence to that, I haven't watched the video, but I at least saw the thumbnail for Professional Smash Bros. Player Zero's video on the drama about this presentation. And obviously the thing in the thumbnail that stood out to me was that it included the number of dislikes on Byleth's presentation at the time of him releasing that video, which was shown to be 63,000 dislikes, which is, that's quite a bit of dislikes. Now, in between then and now, that number has still significantly risen. I'm pretty sure it's around 70,000, but it also has quite a few likes because of just people trying to balance it out, because they're like, it's really not that important. Now, I went and checked the presentation, which, like I said, I'll have linked for you to view, and indeed, compared to every other presentation, Byleth has this inordinate number of dislikes. When I did check it, it still showed 63,000, but like I said, between me writing this and then now me recording this, that number has gone up. So, why is there all this disdain for Byleth? And maybe let me just put it out there right away. It doesn't actually have anything to do with Fire Emblem Three Houses. That ended up being one of a bunch of people's favorite game of the year. If I remember correctly, it won Best Strategy Game at the Game Awards. So it's not a matter of the game being unpopular or people thinking that the game is bad or, whatever it is. I actually saw, someone made like a big picture out of all of these Twitter posts, but someone gave a very wonderful explanation for why there was all this disdain for Byleth. But here I'm going to give my own 2 cents worth on it, and some of my reasons are the same as what you'll see in that post. I don't remember who made it, again, because I don't have a Twitter account, and all I saw was the image collecting all the posts, but if someone knows what it is, if someone can find that post, please add it into the comments, and I will try to pin it, possibly, because I think it's very important for people to know what where all these problems are stemming from. So, now as I see it, there are really 2 clear reasons for why Byleth is seen so negatively. Number 1, before Byleth, there are already 7 Fire Emblem characters in Smash Bros. And those are Marth, Lucina, Roy, Chrom, Ike, Robin, and Corrin. And then just give some background on here. Super Smash Bros. Melee is where Marth and Roy debuted for Smash Bros. Then Ike was added into Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii. Roy was taken out. Then in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, Marth and Ike returned, and then Lucina was added as a clone character for Marth, and Robin was added as another representative for Fire Emblem Awakening, because that was the most recent game at the time of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U's release. And then he would actually be someone who's a little bit more interesting than just another sword fighter like Marth and Ike and Lucina, because Robin is, well, in the game, I believe in Awakening he's considered a tactician, but he uses a lot of magic. Then, when the downloadable content was being made for Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, Roy was brought back as a downloadable content character, and one of the last 2 characters added to the game was Corrin, who's the protagonist of Fire Emblem Fates for the Nintendo 3DS. And then Ultimate simply added Chrom to the roster as an Echo fighter for Roy. Echo is basically just a fancy way of saying a clone character. So, like, Lucina is now Marth's Echo fighter. So, suffice it to say, given that Ultimate already had these 7 Fire Emblem characters, players already felt there were plenty of them. It's that simple. We don't need another. And I can certainly agree. I was not excited for having another Fire Emblem character. I would have preferred a character from pretty much any other series. But at the same time, I understand, because Nintendo wants to do some cross-promotion, and that's the interesting thing about a lot of the Fire Emblem characters is Marth and Roy were added into Melee because, well, first off, Marth was already the famous protagonist for the first game, and Roy was the protagonist of the new Fire Emblem game that was releasing at the time. And then, a similar thing is true for Ike in Brawl with the GameCube game Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, and then Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn was out on the Wii, or it might have been releasing. That's not a game that I know the release date for off the top of my head, unfortunately. But the point is, a lot of Fire Emblem representation in Smash has actually been a lot about cross-promotion of all things. But there's been just so many characters already in the game. So it's just unfortunate. And that gets into my second reason. Speaking of unfortunate, reason number 2, Byleth was released at the worst possible time. I need you to keep in mind here, the first 5 DLC characters were Piranha Plant, which despite being a Mario character, in my opinion, is so out there and creative to be accepted. It's it's not something like Toad. I mean, there are people who want Toad as a Smash Brothers character, even though he's always been historically part of Peach's moveset. But it's not a character who's that simple. It's not somebody who's part of like the base Mario Kart roster, the base Mario Party roster already. Especially because most of those characters are already in the game. Piranha Plant's different. Piranha Plant has never been playable in anything other than maybe like the occasional Mario Party mini game. Then the second one we had was Joker from Persona 5, which is a new game and a new series never seen on a Nintendo system. That's one of the big things about characters like Joker, and then you can even look back to Cloud in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, who also returned for Ultimate. Is like Final Fantasy VII to that point had never been on a Nintendo system, so it's huge to get these new characters that people don't associate with Nintendo yet. And that's part of what gives people that feeling that Smash Brothers is meant to be a celebration of games. That's even something Sakurai acknowledged in the presentation, which has its major pros, and as we can see with this incident, a lot of major cons. Then the second character, or I guess it's the third character that's DLC in general, second for the Fighter's Pass, was Hero, consisting of 4 Dragon Quest protagonists, as I talk about. The series is huge in Japan, not to mention how the series is really the progenitor of the JRPG. It is when you think of what is the basic, most obvious JRPG, you think of Dragon Quest. The third one was Banjo and Kazooie, which was a huge, huge reveal for a couple of reasons. First off, Banjo-Kazooie series started on the Nintendo 64, so Banjo has that history of being on a Nintendo platform. Just Rare in general has a history of being with Nintendo between the NES, just games like Battletoads, and then, would you believe that they developed games like A Nightmare on Elm Street for the NES? I know you wouldn't believe it, but it's true. And then Donkey Kong Country Trilogy, Killer Instinct, those are classic Super Nintendo games. And then, the big ones on the Nintendo 64. There was also Killer Instinct Gold on the N64. But the big ones that people always remember are Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, GoldenEye 007, Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day, even lesser known ones like Blast Corps and Jet Force Gemini. Those are all Nintendo 64 games, so Rare definitely had this pedigree with Nintendo by this point. Their last Nintendo game being Star Fox Adventures on the Nintendo GameCube, that one wasn't so great. And then really once Rare was bought by Microsoft, that's when things really continued to go downhill for the company, unfortunately. That's not to say that they didn't make any good games, but they certainly didn't have the same sort of the same kind of status that they had with Nintendo. So the point is, people associate Banjo more with Nintendo than they do Microsoft. So that was huge in the sense that, I think people are like, we're getting this character back, which is true, obviously. But it definitely feels like Banjo is more at home on the Nintendo Switch compared to the Xbox One or the upcoming Xbox Series X. And, speaking of which, the fact that there are 2 hardware makers collaborating that's pretty much unprecedented. Granted, we've had things like that happening before with crossplay, and I mean, Minecraft is owned by Microsoft, and it's on pretty much every system known to man. Um, this is like the next level, because again, Banjo was already on the Nintendo 64 back in the day, and now it's owned by Microsoft, and now we're getting to see these two publishers who, like, we think of like, the console wars, and which is silly. We see these two coming together in like almost like an olive branch sort of acceptance. That's huge in terms of the gaming space. And then the last DLC character released for Byleth was Terry Bogard from Fatal Fury and the King of Fighters, as I mentioned, among other SNK fighting games. So Terry was interesting in that he was really prolific for Hispanic gamers. That's something that I had no idea, that the King of Fighters and Fatal Fury was particularly popular in Latin American countries. Hey, you know what? Great. I think that's awesome that we're getting characters who are very popular in regions that we don't necessarily think of. Like, I think a lot of people just think of Japan and the West. They don't think of Japan and North America and Central America and South America and Europe. Plus, I mean, Terry makes a great representative for the Neo Geo as well. Okay, there's someone doing some hammering somewhere here in the background. That's one of the only flaws with being here compared to at home, is that I certainly have less noise control. So I must apologize for that in advance, but that is what it is. Anyway, so now that we've had these 5 characters that are already out, the 6th and final DLC character for DLC Pack, the Fighters Pass number 1, really had a lot to live up to put it simply. And to me, Byleth's reaction can really be chalked up to timing, as far as I'm concerned. It's just the fact that he had this spot as the last DLC character. Now, remember in the presentation, though, Sakurai mentioned specifically how he had to play a beta build of Fire Emblem Three Houses to understand Byleth, probably in June of 2019 or earlier, and he still couldn't have the character done until January of 2020. So it takes a long time to make just one of these characters. I can't imagine how long it took just to make. Even remaking some of the original characters, I'm sure takes quite a while. But obviously, a lot of that is already pre-planned. So, in an ideal world, though, where Sakurai really wasn't held back by, well, this game isn't out yet, so now I have to mess around and try to figure out this character already. Let's just say Fire Emblem had already been out in 2017, for example. Really, what I would have done is I would have released characters in a different order just to avoid a fiasco like this. Now, of course, part of the problem with this is then you get into the E3 problem, where with E3, 2 characters were announced. E3 is where Hero was announced and where Banjo was announced. And part of why that was so good is because those, like I said, are huge characters. One that's huge in Japan, one that's huge in the West, at least in the United States. So really, those are the 2 kinds of characters that you want to have shown at E3. But I honestly would not have done that knowing that Byleth was going to be one of the characters, because what I would have wanted to do is have the hype climb up continually, even if it meant that E3's Smash Brothers reveals were a little flatter. So the order I would have gone with for them, I mean, Piranha Plant was its own thing. It was like an extra special edition, so that is just going to stay where it is. But in terms of the Fighter Pass, the order I would have gone is Joker first, just keep him in the same spot, because it really doesn't matter where he falls. Then I would have done Terry, because that still will be exciting. It's still exciting for... He's still exciting for Latin American gamers. And then, just in general, I feel like Terry would have gotten the same reaction no matter what slot he was in. I would have put Byleth right in the middle. Because, again, he's kind of the, that's cool sort of character, unless you're really into Fire Emblem. Then he's awesome, right? And then I would have had Hero, and then Banjo and Kazooie be the last two. Now, really, whichever order Hero goes and whichever spot Banjo goes could depend on one's preference. It really doesn't matter. You could go Hero Banjo, or you could go Hero Banjo, or you could go Banjo Hero. It really doesn't matter. Those are both very exciting characters for each of the populations who care about them. Let's see. Now, of course, I must always give a reminder to stop harassing Sakurai about this. Now, first off, I'd like to specifically mention again that when the DLC started being worked on, that it was Nintendo who decided which characters would be added. Now, okay. I've heard slightly conflicting reports on how this happened. So I've heard some where it's like, well, Nintendo made this list and he gets to pick them, or he made a list and Nintendo basically gave the final call. I don't know, but the point is, he doesn't have a ton of autonomy in picking the characters. Like there's definitely some of Nintendo the company meddling in which characters get into the game and which ones don't. But regardless, he's doing the work, so you can't really be mad at him. It's the old "don't kill the messenger" sort of thing. Plus, I mean, he works to the bone in making Smash, something that, remember, he didn't necessarily want to do after Melee. He left HAL Laboratory after Kirby Air Ride on the GameCube, and because he was like, I don't want to keep doing sequels. I'm sick of doing sequels. I want to do something new. But then he came back for Brawl and Smash 4 and Ultimate after his dear friend Satoru Iwata asked him, because he was like, you're the only person who really, really understands Smash Brothers like this as the creator, so I need you to do this. And you're like, okay, fine. I would be happy in doing it. And, I could definitely say that if I were him, after making Super Smash Bros. Brawl and seeing a bunch of the reactions to, just in terms of the work and in terms of, how people thought the Subspace Emissary is a little silly, not to mention, how the community gets over characters, the lack thereof, I'd be like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm getting out of here. So the fact that he's still doing this, in my opinion, is huge in and of itself. Plus, it's a video game. It's okay. It's just a video game. Just because your character doesn't get in. And hey, I know I have the characters I want. I know friends who have different characters that they want, and they'll be super ecstatic when that character does or doesn't get in. It's fine. It may or may not happen one day, but it's not going to be the end of the world. I just think that in general, people have gone over the top, because it's still okay to be disappointed. It's just not okay to be, calling for terrible, terrible things to happen to Sakurai or the team or Nintendo because your character didn't get in. So what about a bunch of the other stuff in this presentation? That's mostly what I wanted to go over, but I just have a couple of other things that I want to talk about. The stage that was revealed is the Gareg Mach Monastery, which is basically just the main area shown off in the game. It just seems like it's a pretty standard change location stage, kind of like Castle Siege appropriately, another Fire Emblem stage. Again, it looks fine. It doesn't look like anything super special to me, but it's going to be fun to play on. The Mii costumes look really good. I could have done them without the Ubisoft ones. There's an Assassin's Creed one, and then there's a Rabbids hat, but whatever. They're 75 cents. I'm going to download it just at least. If someone wants to make a Mii and they want to have the option of using the Rabbid hat, whatever. That's their thing. Now, two that I saw people being really excited about were the Mega Man X and the Mega Man.exe costumes, but they're just coming back to the game. And if anything, actually, I would have been upset about those, because the thing about those two, and then in the last DLC pack, there was the Proto Man and the Zero costumes added, but those were already DLC in Smash for 3DS and Wii U. So then now they're paid DLC again, instead of being included already on the cartridge for Smash Ultimate, when other former DLC costumes were included. You see how that might be frustrating for someone like me who's just like, oh, well, wait, why isn't Proto Man already in the game? He was DLC, but these other DLC ones are back. Ugh. And, of course, there was one costume that really stole the show, which was Cuphead, which it's appropriate. I actually got Cuphead a couple of weeks ago, so I haven't played a ton of it, I don't have a ton of time to play a ton of games, particularly because one evil game that we will talk about another day that I referenced in the last episode, Crash Team Racing. I love that game. I hate that game. But the point is it takes time away from me, and then I can't play stuff like Cuphead. But it's still exciting because, again, it's another independent character in the game in costume form. And that's huge. That is humongous news. I will certainly pick up those costumes when they release with Byleth, especially the Cuphead one, if only because it comes in another song, just like what happened with the Sans costume coming with Megalovania with Terry. And then the last little bit, the Fighters Pass Volume 2 is revealed. It's going to have 6 characters for $30. I'm going to pick it up, just like I did the first one, because I want the whole roster available to me. It's that simple. Like, I know there are going to be characters that I don't care about. Like, I'm going to try Byleth. I'm going to play Byleth. But, that might not end up playing him in the long run. And then the same is true, like, for me with Hero. I don't really love Hero. Hero's okay, but, I still want him in my roster regardless. So no matter what, it's a fine investment. And then I expect it's going to go about the same as the first Fighters Pass. Who knows? Like, some characters are going to be like, whoa, this is awesome. Other characters are going to be like, that's cool. It's cool. It's fine. So that's what I have to say regarding the new Smash Brothers presentation. If I think of anything later, I guess I'll probably just blurt it out, but that's about it. Why don't we move on to our next topic then?